Friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So this is a video for F5 load balancer, and here we are going to learn how to configure the load balancer. So in this video I'm going to configure basic F5 load balancer configuration, and you can see the topology here. I have big IP F5 load balancer, and this server load balancer is connected to the switch, and here we are running three servers, and in the server we are hosting a website. So because the thing is, my one server is not enough to handle a thousand of requests, because I am hosting one website on my web server, and I have allowed all the internet people to access my website, but my one server is not enough to handle thousand or lakhs of requests per second. So that's why I required another server. I required two or three server, so that it can distribute the traffic or it can handle the traffic. So in order to perform the load balancing, I required a load balancer. Here I have configured the load balancer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all these three servers behind the load balancer. So now the request from the internet or from the outside will hit to the load balancer, and load balancer will distribute the traffic equally to all these servers. So here, if you can see here, I am running all these three servers. So all these three servers having the same configuration, hardware configuration. Also these servers are running the same website. They are hosting the same website. So but they are having a different IP address, because we cannot put the same IP address, we cannot configure the same IP address on the server, right? So that's why we have given the different IP address, but they are running the same website. So let me open this server for you one by one, and let me show you the website. So actually this is not a server. To simulate this environment, I have configured this Windows machine, and I have configured the web services. I have enabled the web services in the Windows machine. So let me show you. Let me log into this Windows machine, and let me show you the website which I have hosted here. So you can also enable the web services if you are running this lab in the EVNG. So simply you need to enable the you can google it how to enable the web service in Windows machine. So once you enable the Windows web services in Windows machine, you will get the uh, folder inet hub in C, and you need to go to the www root, and here I have just modified this default page. So you will get a default page and you have to modify it. So I have already modified it. So if I'll open this default page, you will be able to see the page which I have modified here, right? So let's wait for a few seconds. So yeah, I think you will see the page here. So it's showing this is web server 1, and this is my web server 1, and it is in blue color, right? So I have, just to make you understand, I have just given this in blue color so that we can understand what on which server our traffic is actually hitting. So this is in blue color. Let me close this and let me open the second server. The second server I have configured the same website, but in uh, green color. So let's go to the second server again. I need to open the C drive, and same inet folder, www root, and let's open this page, and you will be able to see that same page. This is a web server 2, right? And but it is in green color. Okay, let me close this and let me open the last server, which is server 3, and server 3 is also running the same website but in red color. Okay, so why I have given all these server in different color, because we will try to open this website from the outside world, because I have given this color so that we can understand on which server our traffic is actually hitting, because as I said, these three servers are running the same website. So the end user will not able to understand, the end user will not able to know on which server their traffic is actually hitting. So they are only trying to access, they are only trying to open the browser and typing the URL, that's it. And the actual server, the physical server, is like the load balancer is doing the load, distributing the traffic between the servers. So let's go to the C drive again, inet and www root folder, and if I open this page, you will see this will be in the red color, right? So now I have three server, first one in blue, second one in green, and third one in red. So now let's go to the F5 load balancer and do the initial configuration. So in order to do the initial configuration, you have to provide the management IP to the load balancer. So I have already given the management IP, which is 192.168.1.17. And I have accessed this load balancer from the management IP. So you need to go to the local traffic, and first you have to configure this physical server. These are the physical server, right? So we have to configure this physical server in the load balancer. We have to add this physical server as in node. So I need to go to the node list, and here you'll see I have already added this 3 server, right? So let's delete all the configuration and let's do the configuration from the beginning. So let me delete this server. Okay, it's deleted. Now let's do the fresh configuration. Let me go to the create button, and here I will give the name server 1 server 1. Description, if you want, you can give the same description, and IP address, you have to give the server physical IP address, which is 192.168.2.90. That's it. Click on finish. 2.90, right? Now let's add the second server. Create server 2 IP address 192.168.2.92. Finish. And let's add the last server 3 90.3, right? This is, sorry, 192.168.2.93. So this is my last server. So I have added all these 3 server. The first one is 90, second one is 92, sorry, 91, second one is 91. Let's modify the IP address, it's not 90. Okay, I need to delete it, and again I need to add a new server. So by mistake I have mentioned the wrong IP address, so the second server IP is 91, right? So let's go to the create button and give the name again server 2 and IP address 192.168.2.91. That's it. So this is done. 90, 91, 93. So here you can see here all these two, server 1 and server 3, are coming in red, but server 2 is coming in uh, blue color. So it should be shown here green if you have connected all these server with the uh, big IP with the load balancer. So it should show in the available state, but it's not showing here available state, it is showing offline, right? So the reason it is showing offline, because we haven't configured here the IP address, or we haven't configured the VLAN. So we have to configure the VLAN and the self IP address, so that my load balancer will initiate the traffic, will try to do the ICMP packet, will send the ICMP packet and monitor the server, right? So as of now it's not monitoring the server, that's why it is showing you the offline. So once we enable the VLAN, once we configure the VLAN, and once we configure the self IP address, it should shown here available state, right? So let's do the further configuration. So as of now I have only configured the nodes. Now I have to configure the pool as well, right? Because we also need to monitor the HTTP server, because these are the web server, and we have to allow the web services from the internet to these servers. So we have to configure the pool, web server pool as well. So I need to go to the pool and just go to the create button, and here I am giving the name web server pool. Okay, description, if you want, you can give. I am not giving any description. And if you see here, the default load balancer method, it's a round robin. So round robin, it's a default load balancing method, but you can modify it, you can change the load balancing method as per your requirement. So we are not touching the load balancing method as of now. I am leaving it as default. So round robin is a default method, and also I'm not changing anything. I need to like add all these 3 nodes which I have just configured. So first I have configured the 90, so let me add this 90s. Then the second server 91, let's add it, and the third one is 93. Okay, 93. So I have created one web server pool, and health monitor, I need to monitor the HTTP health status because these server are running HTTP service, right? And I have added all these three member in the pools. Now let's finish the configuration and let's see. Yeah, so this is also showing offline. So now we have to configure the virtual server. So why we require a virtual server, right? So because this is a actual IP, this is a physical IP of your server, and it's a private IP address. But when any user want to access the website, so that website should resolve on any public IP address, right? So that public IP address might be a virtual IP address which is configured on the load balancer. So when the traffic hits to the load balancer, when the traffic reaches to the load balancer with the help of virtual IP, the load balancer will distribute the traffic equally. So in most of the cases, the virtual IP would be the public IP address, but in our scenario we are just taking the private IP address because we are configuring this lab in EVNG, so we are just using the private IP address. But in actual environment, it might be a public IP address or other IP address which might be configured on the load balancer. So here in our case, the virtual IP address would be 192.168.5.100. So we will use this virtual IP address, right? So here I need to go to the virtual server and configure the virtual server. Just go to the create button and give it any name. I am giving the name virtual server. Description, I am not giving any description, let's leave it. Now the source IP address you have to provide. So the source IP address would be 0.0.0 because we don't know the user of internet, we don't know the IP address of the internet, because any user from the internet can access this server, right? So we don't have the a specific IP address, so that's why I'm giving 0.0.0 as a source address. Now the destination address we know, so in destination address we have to mention the virtual IP address, which might be a public IP address, but in our case it is a private IP address 192.168.5.100. so let's put this IP address 192.168.5.100. okay, now service 80 because we are using HTTP, so it should be the 80. And here I need to select protocol TCP. okay, SSL profile, we are not configuring any SSL profile, so I'm not touching anything else. So let's leave all other configuration as it is. And further, yeah, so I think all the configuration now seems fine. Policy we don't need to configure. Default pool we have to select here. The default pool would be the same pool which we have configured. We have configured the web server pool, right? And in the web server pool we have added all the three nodes. So I need to put the default pool web server pool, okay, which we have configured in the beginning. So now let's finish it. Let's see whether my configuration is saved. Yeah, now it's saved. So we have done all these three configurations. So first we have configured the nodes, we have added all the three physical server, then we have configured a pool, web server pool, and we have enabled the HTTP monitoring, and we have added all the three members. Then we have configured the virtual server, and in the virtual server we have given the source address which is 0.0.0 and the destination which is a virtual IP address, and service port which we want to enable it which 80. And also we have here configure the default pool which is web server pool. So all these three configuration has been completed. Now what we need to do is we need to configure the IP address. So in load balancer we don't have any option to configure the interface IP address. We have an option to configure the self IP, but we don't have any configuration, we don't have any option to configure the interface IP address. So in order to configure this IP address, what we need to do is we need to create a VLANs. So what we're going to do is we will going to create two VLANs. One VLAN we will use for internal network, which is this network, this portion, and one VLAN we will use for external network, which is our outside network. So let's configure the VLAN. So if I'll go to the network tab here, you will see the VLAN option and VLAN list. So if you see here, external and internal VLANs already been created. So let me show you the internal VLAN. So internal VLAN, you can see here internal VLAN is already created, and the interface of internal VLAN is tagged untagged is to 1.1.1. so if you see here 1.1.1 E1.1.1 is my internal interface, right? And the other configuration is as it is. You don't need to modify anything else. If you want, I can do the fresh configuration. Let's delete it so that we can able to understand the configuration of VLAN. So let's delete both the VLANs, internal and external, and we will do the fresh configuration once again. So it's deleted. Let's create external VLAN first. You can give any name. I am giving external VLAN, and description again I'm not giving any description. You can leave it as it is. And interface you have to select. So the external interface is E1.2. see the external, the outside interface, because this is connected to the outside world, and this is internet interface 102. So I need to select 102 here, and this is the option if you want to tag or untag. So I'm not tagging this, I'm using untag. So tag and tag is a access or trunk port in, if you know the concept of Cisco. So untag means access port, so I am just using untag and click on the add button, and that's it. Now click on the tag 409 tag. You can give it, I'm not giving any tag. Let's finish it. Now let's create a internal VLAN, and for internal we are using the interface 1/1.1, and also I am using the same untag. Click add and finish. So I have created two VLANs. So far I have created two VLAN for external network, which is connected to the outside, and VLAN for internal, which is connected to my web server. Okay, so this is done. Now let's go to the self IP, because I need to assign the IP address as well, because without IP it will not work. So I need to assign the IP address as well. So if you see here, so my internal network is connected with interface 1.1, and here I will use the IP address 192.168.2.100, because all these servers are also in the same subnet. These servers are also in the same subnet, right? So I am using the same subnet. So let's do internal IP, and here I'll give the IP address 192.168.2.100. network mask I'll use the same 255.255.0/24, and VLAN. So I am tagging, and I need to tag this interface with the VLAN, right, which we have created. So since this is a internal interface, this is the internal network, so I will tag this interface with the internal VLAN which we have created just now. Port lockdown I'm not touching it. Allow default. Okay, now let's finish it, and let's create external IP as well. External IP, and here I will use the virtual IP address which I have configured 192.168.5.100. if you see the topology also, here I am using the virtual IP 192.168.5.100. so I need to configure this virtual IP address on the outside interface. 5.100 network mask 255.255.0, and this should be in the external VLAN. Port lockdown, allow default, and finished. Okay, so I think now the configuration is being completed. All the configuration now seems fine. I should be able to access the web server from the virtual IP now. If I'll go open any external machine, so like I have configured this Linux machine, so you can assume that this Linux machine from the outside network, they are connected to the internet and they are trying to access from the outside network. Let's try to hit the virtual IP address. Let's try to do HTTP and try to access with the help of virtual IP address. 192.168.5.100. So it's not hitting it. So first I need to check whether this Linux machine is configured with the IP address or not. So I think I need to configure the IP address to my Linux machine. So let's see, we have a command here to check whether any IP address is configured or not. So if config, and you can see here there is no IP address, so I need to configure the IP address. So simply you need to go to the network tab, and here I am using the same segment 192.168.5.10, and gateway should be 5.24. Okay, and apply, close. Now let's try to access the website. HTTP 192.168.5.100. See, now I am able to access the server from the virtual IP address. So what load balancer is doing, load balancer is receiving the traffic for the virtual IP address, and it is distributing the traffic. It says forwarding the traffic to the server 1. So the server 1 is in blue color. Let's go to the second host machine and try to access the website. Again, here I need to give the IP address to this machine. I am giving the IP address 192.168.5.15, let's say, and leave other configuration as it is. Now again, HTTP 192.168.5.100, and this time it's pointing to the second server. See, so from when I tried uh, the access from the host machine 1, it redirected me to the server 1, right? The load balancer distribute the traffic to the server 1, which is in blue color. When the request again came from the second host machine, the load balancers check the traffic and it's distribute the traffic to the server 2, which is in green color. Now let's open the third machine and again configure the IP address, and here I am using IP, apply, and let's try to access the same from the virtual IP address. See, it is pointing to me the third server, red color. So actually it is doing the load balancing, you can see here. So in actually the load balancer is doing the true load balancing here. So when the host 1 try to access the website from the virtual IP, it forward the traffic to the server 1, which is in blue color. When the second host machine tried to access the same website from the virtual IP, the load balancer forward the traffic to the server 2, and when the request come from the third host machine, the load balancer forward the traffic to the third server, which is in red color, right? So this is a load balancing happening by the load balancer. So you can also see the actual traffic here on which server we have a traffic. So you need to go to the local traffic again, and here I think you need to go to the pool list and statistics, and again you can see here server 1 we have total, we have 3 connection, right? In server 1 we have 1 connection, in server 2 we have 1 connection, in server 3 we have 3 connections. So we are having equal connection on all these 3 server. So it's having a load balancing here. So it's doing a load balancing and it's distributing the equal traffic to all these 3 server. And one more thing, in the beginning I told you that the server was showing offline in the red color, but when we going to configure the IP address and VLAN, it should be come into the available state, and it will show here the green color. So you can see here it's showing you here in the green color. So green means available. Again, if I'll go to the notes, it should show here in green color. Green means available, right? So it is showing available. So suppose if in case if my any server goes down, so let's say if this server goes down, let me stop this server and see whether the status is showing green or red here. So let's refresh it. So After I think 40 or few seconds, the status should be offline here. So still showing green. Let's see, let's wait for few more seconds. It will take some time or few seconds. Yeah, so now it's showing offline. Now the load balancer will distribute the traffic only to these two servers, server 1 and server 2, server 1 and server 2, because the third server is now out from the uh, topology and is not available right now. So that's why the load balancer will not forward the traffic to the third server, because it's not available. So I hope you got the idea how the load balancer do the load balancing and how we can configure the load balancer. So that's it for the day. Thank you for watching this video.